In the Chains of Crime by E.W. Hornung. Number 4. 9 Points of the Law. Well, said Raffles, what do you make of it? I read the advertisement once more before replying. It was in the last column of the Daily Telegraph, and it ran, £2,000 reward. The above sum may be earned by anyone qualified to undertake a delicate mission and prepared to run certain risk. Apply by telegram. Security. London. I think, said I, it's the most extravagant advertisement that I ever got into print. Raffles smiled. Oh, not quite all that, Bunny. Still extravagant. Extraordinary enough, I grant you. Look at the figure. It's certainly large. And the mission. And the risk. Yes, the combination is frank, to say the least of it. But the really original point is requiring applications by telegram to a telegraphic address. There's something in the fellow who thought of that, and something in this game. With one word, he chokes off 1,000,000 who answer the advertisement every day when they raise a stamp. The answer cost me 5 bob, and then I prepaid another. You don't mean to say you've applied? Rather, said Raffles. I want £2,000 as much as any man. Put your own name? Oh, no, Bunny, I didn't. The point of fact, I smell something interesting and illegal, and you know what a cautious chap I am. I signed myself as Suarez, care of Hickey, 28 Conduit Street. That's my tailor. And after sending the wire, I went round and told him what to expect. He promised to send me the reply along at any moment it came. And by Jove, that'll be it. And he was gone before the double knock in the outer room had done ringing through the rooms, to return in a few minutes with an open telegram and a face full of news. What do you think? He said. Security is to follow Addenbrooke, the police court lawyer, and he wants to see me instantly. Instanter. And you're going to him now? This minute, said Raffles, brushing his hat. And so are you. But I came to drag you out to lunch. You shall have lunch with me when we've seen this fellow. Come on, Bunny, and you'll choose your name on the way. Mine's Salmrotz, and don't you forget it. Mr. Bennett Addenbrooke occupied substantial offices in Wellington Street, Strand, and was out when we arrived, but he was only just gone, over the way to court, and 5 minutes sufficed to produce a brisk, fresh-colored, resolute-looking man with a very confident, rather festive air, and black eyes that opened wide at the sight of Raffles. Mr. Salmores, said the lawyer. My name, said Raffles with a dry effrontery. Not up to the Lord's, however, said the other slyly. My dear sir, I've seen you take far too many wickets to make any mistake. For a moment Raffles looked venomous. Then he shrugged and smiled, and the smile grew into a little cynical chuckle. So you've bowled me out of my turn, he said. Well, I don't think of any need to explain. I'm rather hard up, and then I wish to admit under my own name. That's all. I want a £2,000 reward. 2,000, said the solicitor. And the man is not above an alias happens to be just the sort of man I want. So don't let that matter bother you, my dear sir. The matter, however, is strictly private and a confidential character, as he looked very hard at me. Quite so, said Raffles, but there was something about a risk. A certain risk is involved. Then surely 3 heads will be better than 2. I said I wanted £2,000. My friend here wants the other. You must have his name, too. Bunny, give him your card. Mr. Addenbrooke raised his eyebrows over my name, address, and club. Then he drummed on my card with his fingernail, and his embarrassment expressed itself in a puzzled smile. The fact is, I find myself in a difficulty, he confessed at last. Yours is the first reply I've received. People who can afford to send long telegrams don't rush to an advertisement in the Daily Telegraph. But on the other hand, I was not quite prepared to hear from men like yourselves. Candidly, and on consideration, I am not sure that you are the stamp of men for me. Men who belong to good clubs. I rather intended the appeal of the adventurer classes. We are adventurers, said Raffles gravely. But you respect the law. The black eyes gleamed shrewdly. We're not professional rogues, if that's what you mean by it, said Raffles calmly. But on our beam ends we are. We would do a good deal for 1,000 apiece. Anything, I murmured. The solicitor rapped his desk. I'll tell you what I want you to do. You can refuse. It's illegal, but its illegality is a good cause. That's the risk, and my client is prepared to pay for it. You will pay for the attempt in case of failure. The money is as good as yours once you've consent to run the risk. My client is Sir Bernard Dablin, of Broom Hall, Esher. I know his son, I remarked. Then, said the solicitor, you have the privilege of knowing one of the most complete young blackguards in about town, and the fonts de Igorigo have the whole trouble. As you know the son, you may know the father also, and all events by reputation. And in case I needn't tell you that he is a very peculiar man. He lives alone in a storehouse of treasures with no eyes but his ever behold. He is said to have the finest collections of pictures in the south of England, though nobody ever sees them to judge. Pictures, fiddles, and furniture are his hobby, and he is undoubtedly very eccentric. Nor can one deny that there has been a considerable eccentricity in his treatment of his son. For years Sir Bernard has paid his debts, and the other day, without the slightest warning, not only refused to do so any more, but absolutely stopped the lad's allowance. Well, I'll tell you what has happened, but first of all you must know, or you may remember, that I appeared for young Debenham in the little scrape he got into a year ago. I got him off all right, and Sir Bernard paid me handsomely on the nail, and no more did I hear or see of either of them until one day last week. The lawyer drew his chair near ours, and leaned forward with hands on either knee. On Tuesday last week I had a telegram from Sir Bernard. I was to go to him at once. I found him waiting for me in the drive. Without a word, he led me to the picture gallery, which was locked and darkened, drew up a blind, and simply stood pointing to an empty picture frame. It was a long time before I could get a word out of him. Then at last he told me that the frame had contained one of the rarest and most valuable pictures in England, in the world, an original Velasquez. I have checked this, said the lawyer, and it seems literally true. The picture was a portrait of Infanta Maria Teresa, said to be one of the artist's greatest works, and second only to his portrait of one of the popes of Rome. So they told me at the National Gallery, where they had its history by heart. They say there is a picture that is practically priceless. A young Debenham had stolen it for £5,000. The deuce he has, said Raffles. I inquired who had bought it. A Queensland legislator by the name of Craggs, the Honourable John Montague Craggs, M.L.C., to give him his full title. Not that we know anything about him on Tuesday last. We didn't even know for certain that young Debenham had stolen the picture. He had gone down for money on the Monday evening, had been refused, and it was plain enough that he had helped himself to the way. He had threatened revenge, and this was obviously it. Indeed, when I hunted him up in town on Tuesday night, he confessed as much in the most brazen manner imaginable. But he wouldn't tell me who was the purchaser, and finding out it took the rest of the week, but find out I did. A nice time I have ever had since. Backwards and forwards between Esher and Metropole, where the Queenslander is staying, sometimes twice a day. Threats, offers, payers, entreaties, not one of them did a bit of any good. But, said Raffles, surely it's a clear case. The sale was illegal. You can pay him back the money and force him to give the picture up. Exactly, but not without an action of a public scandal. That my client declines to face. He would rather lose even his picture than to have the whole thing get into the papers. He was disowned his son, but he will not disgrace him. Yet his picture he must have by hook or crook, and there's the rub. I have to get it back by fair means or foul. He gives me the carte blanche in the matter, and I verily believe would throw in a blank cheque if asked. He offered one to the Queenslander, but Craig simply tore it in two. The one old boy is much of a character as the other, and between the two of them, I'm at wit's end. So you put that advertisement in the paper, said Raffles in the dry tones that he had adopted throughout the interview. As a last resort, I did. And you wish us to steal this picture? That was magnificently said, and the lawyer flushed from his hair to his collar. And you are not the men, he groaned. I never thought men of your stamp, but it's not stealing, he exclaimed heatedly. It's recovering stolen property. Besides, Sir Bernard will pay him with his 5,000 as soon as he has the picture, and you'll see old Craigs will be just as loth to let it go as St. Bernard himself. No, it's an enterprise, an adventure, if you like, but not stealing. You mentioned the law yourself, murmured Raffles. And the risk, I added. We pay for that, he said once more. But not enough, said Raffles, shaking his head. My good sir, consider what it means to us. You spoke of those clubs. We should not only get kicked out of them, but be put in prison like common burglars. It's true we're hard up, but it simply isn't worth that price. Double your stakes, and I am your man at once. Addenbrooke wavered. Do you think you could bring it off? We could try. But you have no experience? No. Not as thieves. And you would really run the risk for 4,000 pounds. Raffles looked at me, and I nodded. We would, he said. We know the odds. It's more than I can ask my client to pay, said Addenbrooke, growing firm. Then it's more than you expect us to risk. You're in earnest. Good what? Say 3,000 if you succeed. No, 4. Then nothing if you fail. Double or quits, said Raffles. Well, that's sporting. Done. Addenbrooke opened his lips, half rose, then sat back in his chair and looked long and shrewdly at Raffles, never once at me. I know you're bowling, as he said reflectively. I go up to Lord's whenever I want an hour's real rest. I've seen you bowl again and again, yes, and take the pitch wickets in England on a pitch plum. Don't forget the last Gentleman and Players. I was there. You're up to every trick, even one. I'm inclined to think that you would bowl out this old Australian if anybody can. Why? I believe you're the very man. The bargain was clinched at the Café Royal, where Benedict Addenbrooke insisted on playing host at an extravagant luncheon. I remember that he took his whack of champagne with the nervous freedom of a man at high pressure, and have no doubt I kept him in countenance by an equal indulgence. But Raffles, ever an exemplar in such matters, was very abstemious even than his wont, and very poor company to boot. I can see him now, his eyes on his plate, thinking. I can see the solicitor glancing from him to me in an apprehension of which I did my best to disabuse him of reassuring looks. At the close, Raffles apologized for his preoccupation and called for an ABC timetable and announced an intention of catching the 3-2 to Esher. You must excuse me, Mr. Addenbrooke, he said, but I have my own idea, and for the moment I should much prefer to keep it to myself. It may end in fizzle, so I would rather not speak about it to either you or either of you yet. But speak to Sir Bernard if you must, so will you write me one line to him on your card? Of course, if you wish, you must come down with me and hear what I say, but I really don't see the point. As usual, Raffles had his way, through Benedict Edinbrook was visibly provoked, and I myself shared his annoyance at no small extent. I could only tell him that it was in the nature of Raffles to be self-willed and secretive, but that no man of my acquaintance had half his audacity and determination, that I, for my part, would trust him through and through, and let him gang out his own gate every time. More I dared not to say, even to remove those chill misgivings with which I knew that the lawyer went his way. That day I saw no more of Raffles, but a telegram reached me when I was dressing for dinner. Be in your rooms tomorrow from noon and keep the rest of the day clear. Raffles. It had been sent off from Waterloo at 6:42. So Raffles was back in town at an earlier stage of our relations. I should have hunted him up then and there, but now I knew better. His telegram meant that he had no desire for my society that night or the following forenoon. That when he wanted to see, I should be seeing him soon enough. And see him I did, towards 1 o'clock the next day. I was watching for him from my window at the Mount Street when he drove up and furiously in a hansom, and jumped out without a word to the man. I met him next minute at the lift gates, and he fairly pushed me back into my rooms. 5 minutes, Bunny, he cried. Not a second more. And he tore off his coat before flinging himself into the nearest chair. I'm fairly on a rush, he panted. Having the very dickens of a time. Not a word till I tell you all I've done. I settled my plans for the campaign yesterday at lunch. The first thing was to get at this man Craigs. You can't break into police like a metropolis. It's got to be done from the inside. Problem 1, how to get to the fellow. One sort of a pretext would be it must be something to do with his blessed picture, so that I might see where he'd got it, and that all. Well, I couldn't go to ask to see it out of curiosity, and I couldn't go as a second representative of the other old chap, and it was thinking how much I had made such a barrack lunch. But I saw my way before we got up. If I could only lay a copy of the picture, I might ask to leave to go and compare it with the original. So down I went to Esher to find out there was a copy in existence, and at Broom Hall for 1 hour and a half yesterday afternoon. There was no copy there, but they must exist, for Sir Bernard himself, such a rum old boy, has allowed a couple to be made since the picture has been in his possession. He hunted up the painters' addresses, and the rest of the evening I spent in hunting up the painters themselves. But their work had been done to commission. One copy had gone out of the country, and the other I'm still on the track of. Then you haven't been to Craig's yet? Oh, yes, I've seen him and made friends with him, and possible he's funnier than the old cuss of the two. I took the bull by the horns this morning and went in and lied to Aniston, and I was just as well. The old ruffian sails for Australia by boat tomorrow. I told him a man wanted to see a copy, and the celebrated Infanta Maria Teresa of Velasquez, that had been down to see the supposed owner of the picture, only to find out that it had just sold to him. You should have seen his face when I told him that. He grinned all around his wicked old head. Did old Debenham admit it, he says. And when I said he had, he chuckled to himself for about 5 minutes. He was so pleased that he did just that I hoped he would do. He showed me the great picture. Luckily, it isn't protected by any large one, and took a special place in the showing of the case he got it. An old iron map case in which he'd brought over from the plans of his own land in Brisbane. He wanted to know who would suspect of it containing the old master, too. But he's had it fitted with a new Chubb's lock, and I managed to take an interest in the key while he was gloating over the canvas. I had waxed my palm on the hand, and I shall make a duplicate this afternoon. Raffles looked at his watch and jumped up, saying that he had given me a minute too much. By the way, he added, you've got to dine with him at the Metropole tonight. I? Yes. Don't look so scared. Both of us are invited. I swore you were dining with me, but I shan't be there. His clear eyes were upon me, bright with meaning and with mischief. I implored him to tell me what his meaning was. You will dine in his private sitting room, said Raffles. It adjoins his bedroom. You must keep him sitting as long as possible, Bunny, and talking all the time. There's a flash that saw his plan. You're going for the picture while we're dining. Exactly. If he hears you? Oh, he shan't. But if he did? And I fairly trembled at the thought. If he did, said Raffles, there would be a collision, that's all. You had better take the revolver. I shall certainly take mine. But it's ghastly, I cried, to sit and talk to an utter stranger and know that you're at work in the next room. 2,000 apiece, said Raffles quietly. Upon my soul, I believe I shall give it away. Not you, Bunny. I know you better than you know yourself. He put on his coat and his hat. What time have I got to be there? I asked, with a groan. 7:45. There will be a telegram from me saying I can't turn up. He's a terror to talk. You'll have no difficulty in keeping the ball rolling. But head him off for his picture while you're worth. If he offers to show you, say you must go. He locked up the case elaborately this afternoon, and there's no earthly reason why he should unlock it again in this hemisphere. Where shall I find you when I get away? I shall come down to Esher. I hope to catch the 9:55. But surely I can see you again afternoon, I cried in ferment, for his hands were on the door. I'm not half coached up yet. How shall I know how to make a mess of it? Not you, he said again, but I shall if I waste any more time. I've got a deuce of a lot of rushing about to do yet. You won't meet me in my rooms. Why not come down to the Esher yourself by the last train? That's it. Come down to the latest news, and I'll tell old Denham to expect. He won't be able to do us too well if he's got his picture. If, I groaned as he nodded his adieu, and he left me limp with apprehension, sick with fear, and perfectly pitiable condition of pure stage fright. For, after all, I had only to act my part, unless Raffles failed where he never did fail, unless Raffles the neat and noiseless was for once clumsy and inept. All I had to do was indeed smile and be a villain. I practiced that smile that afternoon. I rehearsed the punitive parts of the hypothetical conversations. I got up stories. I dipped in a book of Queensland at the club. And at last it was 7:45, and I was making my bow to the somewhat elderly man with a small bald head and a retreating brow. So, you're Mr. Raffles' friend, he said, overhauling me rather rudely with his light small eyes. Have you seen anything of him? I expected him earlier to show me something, but he's never come. No more evidently had his telegram, and my troubles were beginning already. I said I had not seen Raffles since 1 o'clock, telling the truth with unction that, while I could. Even as we spoke, there came a knock at the door. It was a telegram at last, and, after reading it himself, the Queenslander handed it to me. Called out of town, he grumbled. Sudden illness of a near relative. What near relatives has he got? Now, Raffles had none, and for an instant I quailed before the perils of invention. Then I replied that I had never met any of his people, and felt horrified by my veracity. Thought your bosom pals, said he, with, as I imagined, a gleam of suspicion in his crafty little eyes. Only in town, said I. I've never been to his place. Well, he growled, I suppose it can't be helped. Don't know why he couldn't come and have this after dinner. If I'd like to see my deathbed, that I'd go without my dinner. It's full-skinned billet, if you ask me. Well, we must just dine without him, and we'll have to pay for his pig in a poke after all. Mind touching that bell. Suppose you know what he came to see me about. Sorry, I shan't see him again for his own sake. I liked Raffles. Took him as amazingly. He's a cynic. I like cynics. I'm one myself. Rank bad form of his mother or his aunt to go and kick the bucket today. I connect these specimens of his conversation, though they were doubtless detached at time, and interspersed with remarks of mine here and there. They filled the interval until dinner was served. They gave me an impression of a man with every subsequent utterance confirmed. It was an impression which did away with all remorse for my treacherous presence at his table. His was a terrible type, the silly cynic. His aim was caustic commentary on all things and all men, his achievement mere vulgar reverence and unintelligible scorn. Ill-bred and ill-informed, he had, on his own showing, fluked into fortune on a rise in land. Yet cunning he possessed, as well as malice, and he chuckled till he choked over misfortunes of less astute speculators on the same boom. Even now I cannot feel much compassion for my behavior to the Honorable J. M. Craigs, M.L.C. But never shall I forget the private agonies of the situation, the listening to my host with one ear and for Raffles with the other. Once I heard him, though the rooms were divided by the old-fashioned folding doors, and though the dividing door was not only shut, but also richly curtained, I could have sworn I heard him once. I spilt my wine and laughed at the top of my voice at some coarse sally of my host's, and I heard nothing more, though my ears were on the strain. But later, to my horror, when the waiter had finally withdrawn, Craigs himself sprang up and rushed to his bedroom without a word. I sat like stone till he returned. "I thought I heard a door go," he said. "I must have been mistaken. Imagination. Give me quite a turn. Raffles tells you the priceless treasure I got in there." It was the picture at last. Up to the point I had kept it to him in Queensland in making of his pile. I tried to get him back there, but now in vain. He was reminded of his great ill-gotten possession. I said that Raffles had just mentioned it, and that set him off. With the confidential garrulity of a man who has been drinking freely, he plunged into his daring topic, and I looked past him at the clock. It was only 10:15. In common decency I could not yet go, so there I sat, we were still at port, and learnt what had originally fired my host's ambition to possess what he was pleased to call a real genuine twin-screw double-funneled copper-bottomed old master. It was to go one better than some rival legislator of the pectoral proclivities. But even an epitome of his monologue would not be so much weariness. Suffice it that it ended inevitably with the invitation I had dreaded all the evening. "But you must see it. Next room, this way." "Isn't it packed up?" I said, lingering hastily. "Lock and key, that's all." "Oh, pray don't trouble," I urged. "Trouble be hanged," he said. "Come along." And all at once I saw that to resist him further would be to heap suspicion upon myself the moment of impending discovery. I therefore followed him into his bedroom without further protest, and suffered him first to show me the iron map-case which stood in the corner. He took a crafty pride with his receptacle, and I thought he would never cease descanting on its innocent appearance and its chublock. He seemed an interminable age before the key was in a letter. Then the word clicked, and my pulse stood still. "By Jove!" I cried the next instant. The canvas was in the place among the maps. "I thought it would knock you," said Craigs, drawing it out and unrolling it for the benefit. "Grand thing, ain't it? Wouldn't think it would have been painted 230 years ago. But it has, my word. Old Johnson's face will be the treat when he sees it. Won't go bragging about his picture any more. Why, this one's worth all the pictures in Colony of Queensland put together. Worth £50,000, my boy, and I got it for 5. He dug me in the ribs, and seemed in my mood to further confidences. My appearance checked him, and he rubbed his hands. "If you take it like that," he chuckled, "how will old Johnson take it? Go out and hang himself on his own picture rods, I hope. Heaven knows what I contrived to say at last. Struck speechless first by my relief, I continued silent for the very different cause. A new tangle of emotions tied my tongue. Raffles had failed. Raffles had failed? Could I not succeed? Was it too late? Was there no way? So long, he said, taking a last look in the canvas before rolling it back up. The flutter I was in as he closed the case. For the last time, he went on, as his keys jingled back into his pocket, it goes straight into the strong room on board. For the last time, if I could but send him out of Australia with only the legitimate contents of a precious map case, if I could have but succeeded where Raffles had failed. When we returned to the other rooms, I have no notion how long he talked, or what about. The whiskey and soda water became the order of the hour. I scarcely touched it, but he drank copiously, and before 11 I left him incoherent. And the last train for Esher was 11:50 out of Waterloo. I took a hansom to my rooms, and was back in the hotel in 13 minutes. I walked upstairs, and the corridor was empty. I stood an instant in the sitting-room threshold, and heard a snore within, and admitted myself softly with my master key. Craigs never moved. He was stretched on the sofa fast asleep, but not fast enough for me. I saturated my handkerchief with chloroform I had bought, and laid it gently over his mouth. 2 or 3 strenuous breaths, and the man was a log. I removed the handkerchief and extracted the keys from his pocket. In less than 5 minutes I put them back, after winding the picture about the body underneath the intravenous cape. I took some whiskey and soda water before I went. The train was easily caught, so easily that I trembled for 10 minutes in my first-class smoking carriage, and terror at every footstep on the platform, an unreasonable terror till the end. Then at last I sat back and lit a cigarette, and the lights of Waterloo reeled out of behind. Some men were returning from the theatre. I can recall their conversation even now. They were disappointed with the piece they had seen. It was one of the later Savoy operas, and they spoke wistfully of the days of Pinafore and Patience. One of them hummed a stave, and there was an argument over whether the air was out of Penance or Mikado. They all got all out of Sabaton, and I was alone with my triumph for a few intoxicating minutes. To think I had succeeded where Raffles had failed. Of all our adventures, this was the first in all of which I had played a commanding part, and of them all, this was indefinitely the least detectable. It left me without a conscious qualm. I had but robbed the robber. When all was said, I had done it myself, single-handed. Ipse argument. I pictured Raffles, his delights, his prize. I would think a little more of him in the future, and that future it should be different. We had £2,000 apiece, surely enough to start afresh as honest men, and all through me. In a glow I sprang out of Esher and took the one belated cab that was waiting under the bridge. In a perfect fever I beheld Broom Hollow, with the lower story lit up, and saw the front door open as I climbed the steps. "Thought it was you," said Raffles cheerily. "It's all right. There's a bed for you. Sir Bernard's sitting up to shake your hand." His good spirits disappointed me, but I knew the man. He was one of those who wear the brightest smile in the blackest hour. I knew him too well by this time to be deceived. "I've got it," I cried in his ear. "I've got it." "Got what?" he asked me, stepping back. "The picture." "What?" "The picture. He showed it to me. You had to go without it. I saw that, so I determined to have it, and here it is." "Let's see," Raffles grinned. I threw off my cape and unwound the canvas from about my body. While I was doing so, an untidy old gentleman made his appearance in the hall and stood looking on with raised eyebrows. "Looks pretty fresh for an old master, doesn't it?" said Raffles. His tone was strange. I could only suppose that he was jealous of my success. "So Craig said. I hardly looked at it myself." Whoa, look now. Look closely, by Jove. It must have been faked it better than I thought. It's a copy, I cried. It's the copy, he answered. It's the copy I've been tearing all over the country for to procure. It's a copy I've faked back and front, so that on your own showing it imposed upon Craigs and might have made him happy for life. And you go and rob him of that. I could not speak. How did you manage it? Inquired Sir Burnham Denham. Have you killed him? Asked Raffles sardonically. I did not look back at him. I turned to Sir Barnard Debenham and told him I told my story, hoarsely, excitedly, for all it was that I could keep from breaking down. But as I spoke, I became calmer. I finished in mere bitterness with the remark that another time Raffles might tell me what he meant to do. Another time, he cried instantly. My dear Bunny, you speak as though we were going to turn into burglars for a living. I trust you won't, said Sir Bernard, smiling, for you are certainly two very daring young men. Let us hope our friend from Queensland will do as he said, and not open the case till he gets back there. He will find my cheque awaiting him, and I shall be very much surprised if he troubles any of us again. Raffles and I did not speak till I was in the room which he had been prepared for me, nor was I anxious to do so then, but he followed me and took my hand. Bunny, he said, don't you be hard on a fellow. I was in the deuce of a hurry and didn't know that I should ever get what I wanted in time, but that's a fact. But it serves me right that you should have gone and undone one of the best things I ever did. As for your handiwork, old chap, you won't mind me saying that I didn't think you had it in you. In the future... For God's sake, don't talk about that. The future, I cried. I hate the whole thing. I'm going to give it up. So shall I, said Raffles. We've made my pile.